Hey, good morning, Jefi. How are
Good
you
morning.
doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing really good. Fall arrived here. It dropped 30 degrees in 24 hours. So that's fun.
I actually wore a zip up jacket yesterday, like a full, like to your knees.
Because it
What
was
is,
like 68 and you were a little
yeah,
chilly.
probably. Maybe
Yeah, that's
70.
probably it. Yeah, could be. Well, we're kicking off an exciting series,
Yeah.
very informational to all you
hmm
buyers out there. You're going to love this. Agents, these are things to cover to be with your clients and going over some of the fundamentals of what are we talking
Yes.
about, Jeff?
Today we're talking about VA loans, which is Veteran Affairs loans.
Yes. And I'm
Yep.
excited about this because I don't do a lot of VA loans
Mm,
here. We don't have a lot of vets. I was
right.
thinking about it. I think I've done in 20 years probably less than a half dozen of them.
Yeah.
And that's on the buy and the sale side. We just don't see
Yeah.
it a lot. But you're in San
Right.
Diego. I got to imagine this is a huge part of your market.
They come up a lot, which is really interesting, and that's why. And I know San Diego because we have our military bases here, and there's other places all over the country that do. They're an underutilized loan because people don't understand them. And when I say people, I don't mean the borrower; I mean the sellers and the
Yeah.
selling agent. So the what we're going to try to do today is give a broad stroke, a broad brush of what a VA loan is so that you can take bullet points and go back to your favorite lender and ask questions. And I think this information is just as important to a consumer, to the buyer, as it is to a seller. Because if the seller understands, if you as the seller understand what this is all about, a lot of these loans are amazing. So,
Yeah.
and you have really, really motivated buyers.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point when it's so yeah, sellers out there, it pays to listen to understand.
Yeah.
Agents the same if you don't see it a lot. I know I've
hmm
been in that situation where I'm like, I know there's an appraisal involved and things need to
hmm
meet. We're going to get into all that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's going to be super educational for everybody. And I pulled a quick stat because
Okay.
that's
Because you love
me
stats. Yeah.
because I love stats. What percentage of loans do you think are VA
Across the country,
across the country?
less than 20%.
Yeah, 11%, which is a lot
Yeah.
higher than I thought. That's pretty
Oh, yeah.
good.
Yeah, it is good.
So, 11%. So you're missing out if you don't know this. So listen up. Teach me, Jeff.
All right. So the biggest thing for a VA loan is that there's no down payment. So it's a zero down loan. And the one of the biggest things that I have a hurdle with my sellers when they're receiving a VA loan is they automatically think that the consumer, the buyer, does not have money. That is completely not true. So just because you see a loan come in with zero down doesn't mean the seller has no money. It just means they're exercising that option for this loan. And a lot of times they use that for upgrades in the property. They use that for, whatever they want to use it for instead of having to use it for a down payment, which is a really big one.
Yeah, that's huge. No down payment.
No down payment. Yeah. And again, this is not a negative that they don't have a down payment. It's positive for them. So
Right.
remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Because a lot of people go, well, this buyer has, 400,000 down, so they're way stronger. Well, if that's what you think, make sure you ask to see their proof of funds if they have extra cash, because there is that piece there. You need to have all the facts.
gotcha.
VA loans are assumable. Um, I see this marketed a lot in San Diego, and the thing is that even though they are assumable, they're extremely difficult to assume. So if you are on the listing side and you have a VA loan on your property, the absolute best thing you can do is get all the facts up front to make sure that you're marketing correctly to the consumer, because some VA loans are held by a company that just holds and processes loans, not actually the bank. They can't do an assumable. So what happens is you cause this buzz for an assumable loan, because technically they are, but this particular home does not qualify. So there's a lot of pieces that come into play there.
Okay, so agents out there, listen up. if you have a VA loan and there's your seller's saying it's assumable, do your homework.
Do
and
your
the same for
homework.
you sellers out there. It's like, know the details on that before you tell your agent.
Yes. And there's
That's a great one.
That's a good one. And there's a lot of loops in there, because if the veteran sells to a civilian, their VA benefits are tied up. If they sell it to another veteran, then they get to take their VA benefits and move them to the next property.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
See,
So
like I'm already learning here. So let's back this up. Let's back up the truck here a little bit for me. All right. So what you're saying then is, let's say you got a buyer you got a seller, and they bought their home 5 years ago.
And they're a
on
veteran.
a VA, and they're a veteran. And that, I got to believe that rate's going to be like 3%, right?
Their rates are great. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you got this low rate, and you could be in a situation where it's assumable in an 8% market.
Yeah.
Huge.
And there's another layer to this, and I really highly recommend. Okay, remember, Ed and I are realtors, and we know a lot about loans, but we're not experts in loans. So we're giving you bullet points to talk with your lenders about.
Yes.
A big piece of the assumable loan is if the seller owes $500 on their loan and they're selling it for $700, the buyer has to bring in cash for the bridge. So they'd have to bring $200 in to assume that loan. Some of those primary lenders, the ones that have the assumable loan, will allow a second mortgage. Some will not. So you see how this can get very convoluted.
Yes.
And it's so easy to throw out, this is assumable, So as a consumer out there, I would highly recommend you find out all the different layers of the assumability of a loan, so that you're not out wasting time looking at properties that you think that you can actually assume.
Or worse yet, you tie up a property thinking one thing, and then you find out another. So what's the thing here? Do your homework.
Prior proper planning
prevents piss poor performance. That's right. The 7 P's to success, Jeff.
Yeah, there you go. So another really great point for a VA loan is the veteran gets an incredible interest rate. The interest rate is normally better than any interest rate that you can get in a conventional loan. So this is something that allows the veteran to have a leg up and a lower payment, which is really nice. The other thing is there's no PMI. That's private mortgage insurance. And we're going to talk about that in our next podcast with FHA loans. But even though this consumer, the veteran, is putting no money down, they don't have to pay private mortgage insurance, which is a really big one.
That's amazing. Yeah.
There's flexible credit requirements for them, a little bit more flexible than a normal conventional or even an FHA loan, which actually helps a lot. And their ratios are different than a standard loan, which is great.
Now, when you say ratios, just to educate.
Sure. So ratios meaning your debt to income ratio. So there's a percentage that lenders look at to see if you can actually afford a piece of property. And so that's moved a little bit in a VA loan.
Gotcha.
Not to put the veteran in a bad position, but because their income is so, it's stable. They have a job with the military. So they know this person is going to have a paycheck coming in. Yeah. Okay.
Gotcha.
There's a few cons to a VA. My biggest con is that the sellers and agents don't understand them. And I know we talked about that a little bit in the previous points, but if you're a consumer and you have a really great agent, that agent and your lender should be able to call the seller's agent and explain the strength of your loan. That is a very key point. You need to have an agent who's going to support you in that. You can't just write your offer, it's VA, and send it in. You need to make sure that the other side understands what they're getting. Because can you imagine for you in North Carolina getting a VA loan? That's not in your wheelhouse. You don't live, eat, and breathe that.
Right. Now, again, in Chapel Hill, Durham,
Yeah,
Wake
gotcha,
County. We
sorry.
don't down like Fayetteville
Sorry.
for our listeners there, where there's bases, we see them. But you're right, it's not in our wheelhouse. And there's a special, there's an additional form that comes in with the offer.
Yep.
And you're like reading through it. You haven't seen one in 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And you're trying to educate yourself. And the agent, when they don't call you and walk you through that, just to kind of bring you up. Or, you could have an agent new in the business. They've never seen it before.
So they have no idea.
They have no idea. They're not going to be your advocate on that to the seller because they don't understand it. And, what is not understood, is feared, right? So there really needs to be that. So agents that are working with VA educate the other side so that they know what's going on.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, there is property eligibility that comes up with a VA buyer. Now, this can go for FHA and conventional buyers as well, but it's just a bit more strict with a VA. And a lot of times sellers get a little nervous about this. So I want to explain what that is. The veteran needs Section 1 and Section 2 termite. Now, do you have termite issues in Chapel Hill?
Not like California, but we do have them, but they're not like we don't tent and all that. Not as bad.
Okay, great. So one thing that is not commonly spoken about is that a veteran can actually pay for pretty much anything as long as it's negotiated up front. So if you as the consumer are using a veteran loan, a VA loan, and you go to a property and you see that there's excessive termite damage and you're in a competitive situation, you can write in that you'll pay for it. It just has to be paid for. And so many agents and sellers don't understand that the veteran can actually pay for that.
Gotcha.
Okay.
I didn't know that.
You can't have broken windows or missing flooring or things that would affect the livable nature of the home. It has to have a heater. It has to, have those basics in there. And, that should be a no-brainer, but it's very hard for a veteran to go and buy with a VA loan a property that's in distress or is not in a livable status. That would not work for them.
Gotcha.
Okay. The appraisal process is a little bit longer than a normal loan because it has to go through a certified Veterans Affairs appraiser. And a misnomer is that they value properties less than a normal appraiser would. They do not. Just because they're a VA appraiser only means that they understand what they have to provide for the lender. That's the only difference. Doesn't mean, we're going to, send in a value that's less than. Just so you know.
And it also includes more physical evaluation, correct? Because of the broken windows and things like that.
Yeah. They'll look for those type of things. And for us, we have to have smoke detectors. We have to have CO detectors. That's for every loan. But it's very important that if you're going to accept as a seller of a VA loan, you want to make sure those things are handled before the appraiser comes through.
Okay.
So, and then the very last thing is, and we've touched on this 3 times, and I think that's because it's so important to me, is that you need to have an advocate as a VA buyer that understands how to convey how strong you are to the listing side. Mm-hmm. And part of your homework that you need to do when you're going to have a VA loan is to get fully underwritten. There's pre-approvals, and then there's the fully underwritten loan. You want to be fully underwritten with everything except for the address. And there's other pieces of that, like they have to approve title and a couple other things. But when you go in that strong, there is no issue with you providing your bank statements or you providing documentation that proves that you can afford this loan. And that is extremely strong.
So let me ask you this from first of all, great summary on the pros and cons.
Yeah, thank you.
And I'm thinking about this as like the listing agent who doesn't see them a lot, right?
Right.
So walk me through the con of you're in a multiple offer situation, right?
Yeah.
How do you have that offer that's VA come to the top when other offers might be perceived as less risky?
Well, if I'm fighting for a veteran to get their offer accepted, I always include a proof of funds that shows that they actually have money in their bank account.
Okay.
That they're strong.
Smart.
Okay.
Smart.
The next thing is that if that veteran has a fully underwritten loan, I make sure that the seller understands that and knows that they're fully underwritten, because a lot of other loan types, even conventional loans, even cash loans, where's their cash coming from? Are they screwing around and telling you it's coming from their IRA? Well, okay, that's a problem. But I mean, you really show the strength, and you can show the seller the 3 different options of loans. Let's just say there's 3 different styles, and you can literally go point by point and show them the strength of this loan. The only time that I ever feel a hurdle is that a veteran currently, this could change, but a veteran currently cannot bring in cash to close the difference. So the appraised value is the sales price value. So this is something that you need to talk to your lender about, because I think that there are ways to bring in cash above the loan, but they're very strict about the actual loan being within the appraised value.
Gotcha.
Whereas if you have a conventional buyer who has extra, more than what they need for their down payment per the loan, they can make up that difference. So there's a lack of negotiation there with a veteran. Yeah.
No, that's a great summary. Really good points here.
Thank you.
Really,
All right.
really good points.
So again, I just want to tie this up with a bow. Ed and I are giving you talking points for your VA loan. Please take these talking points and go talk to your lender, because they are in the mix. They are the ones that know the ins and outs. They also know exactly what's going on in your current day and time. So we want you to take this information and go to them and get the facts.
That's right. So talk to your lender, and then agents, you're getting educated here. So talk to your lender as well, so you can go through the details on it.
There you go. All right, Ed. Thanks. Thanks, everyone.
Take care.